Welcome to our weekly Forex market analysis call, and this is in preparation for a trading on the week of March 5th to 9th, 2018. Just a quick disclaimer before we get started. This whole trading business is a risky business, so please be careful when you're trading because there is a chance of losing money here as well, and losses can be quite big if not managed properly. And all of this is for educational purposes only, and it's not intended to be any kind of investment advice. All right, so let's get started here. As usual, we'll start off by taking a look at our Forex factory here, and then we will get into, so we always look at the news first, and then we'll get into our charts, technicals. So the biggest thing that we're going to start the week off with would be in terms of elections here. So we have Eurozone elections, Italian elections. Now this could create market volatility for Euro. So we just have to kind of keep an eye out for that if you're trading Euro over the next couple of days, especially as things settle down, so that as the results start coming out. And then we'll have to see what kind of government is formed, and that will create volatility for the Eurozone. So just be mindful of that. So any Euro crosses will be impacted as a result of that. All right, so elections will be the first thing. And then after that, going into Monday, we have PMI numbers here. PMI is actually a leading indicator, which kind of leads into retail sales. So if PMI numbers come out well, then retail sales generally come out well, and the GDP generally comes out well. So it's a leading indicator. As a result of that, PMI numbers are very important. So we have Eurozone PMI numbers, and then PMI numbers for the British pound here, as well as US. So those will be important, and will, it can create volatility in the market right immediately after the release. So keep that in mind. And then we have current account, which is the trade balance numbers, and retail sales for Australia. And then we have cash rate and RBA rate statement. So again, when there is a central bank event, usually causes volatility. So I would be paying attention to this. At this point, they're not expected to change interest rates. Bank of Australia or Reserve Bank of Australia has actually been quite, they haven't been dovish, but they have been concerned about the economy. They essentially said last time that they don't expect the economy to hold up as well as it has been, and hence they're not looking to do any interest rate hikes. However, as things change, their commentary could change as well. So that's why we need to pay attention to this. If they do mention anything about strong economy, the forecast being really good for 2018 or 2019, or they talk about good employment numbers, good data coming out, inflation going up, all of those would be taken as positive comments by the market, and Australian dollar could go up. However, if we hear the opposite of that, if we hear worry or concern about the economy based on their commentary, that will be negative for Australian dollar. So that's what we'll have to focus on. They're not expected to do interest rate hike at this point. Tuesday here, we have Reserve Bank of Australia Governor Lau speaking. Usually we tend to have press conferences right after the cash rate statement is. So this is the next day. So again, we'll have to watch out for this. And for British pound here, we have MPC member Haldane speaking. Again, so Bank of England is kind of going through that transitionary phase as well. The data has been coming out really well. Inflation numbers are high. And as a result of that, now Bank of England is changing their monetary policy stance. So before they were talking about doing interest rate hikes later in the year in November of 2018. Last time, they changed that to, say, I think May of 2018. So that's what we'll have to pay attention to. MPC member Haldane's, any of his comments that suggest that Bank of England is ready to change monetary policy would be positive for the British pound. However, overall, British pound has been really been impacted by Brexit issues. Even Bank of England, Governor Carney's speech the other day and Prime Minister Theresa May's speech did not really pull it back from the whole negative sentiment that we've been seeing for British pound, especially last week here or the last couple of weeks. So the sentiment still remains, but because we have seen a large decline, we could get pullback. So be aware of that. And then Australia, we have GDP numbers. Those are always important. Wednesday, we have non-farm payroll employment change numbers. So these will be important. Trade balance for Canada will be important. And then we have Bank of Canada as well. So we have two central banks here this week. Now, with Canada, Canada is in an interesting place right now. The economy has been doing well. However, we just heard that President Trump announced tariffs, and Canada will be one of the countries that will be impacted by these tariffs. So Canadian economy could take a hit as a result of that. So what that means for Canadian dollar is that we may, and also Bank of Canada. So Bank of Canada has been raising rates. They are the second central bank right after of the majors, right after the Fed, who has actually gone ahead and done interest rate hikes. And part of that was to cool the housing market in Canada. So now with US putting tariffs and also with NAFTA being renegotiated, Canada's economy could be at that point where it could really feel the impact, especially if these tariffs go ahead. So Canadian dollar could drop as a result. And now this is a more of a fundamental development. It's not related to technical level, so it may not be impacted right away. But overall, so the good thing to do would be to keep an eye on what happens, how these things play out. And if the tariffs do go in place, it will have an impact on Canadian dollar, a negative impact on Canadian dollar, which means dollar CAD could go up as a result. And then Bank of Canada may not be so keen on doing interest rate hikes, and their commentary may actually mention something about this. So that's what we'll have to keep an eye out on. Trade balance numbers for Australia, those will be important. Trade balance is essentially the difference between imports and exports. So these numbers are always important. And then we have euro, so minimum bid rate. This is interest rate. This is the third central bank here this week. ECB is not ready to raise rates yet. However, they are also, Eurozone is also at this point, the data has been coming out well. And I think ECB will be another bank that may be ready to start taking some action on their monetary policy. So far, all they have done is they have slightly cut the asset purchase program. So they're not buying as much of their own bonds and stuff like that. They haven't completely cut it. They're not ready to raise rates yet, but their main thing would be to provide forward guidance to the market. And this is what the market will be looking for. Basically, the question that market is trying to answer is, when will ECB change the monetary policy? So that's what, if they mention anything about any kind of forward guidance, for example, everything looks good now, and it may be time for us to start cutting back on the asset purchase program, for example. That would be positive for euro. So that's what we'll have to watch out for, especially with the press conference here. Draghi would mention something about that, or should mention something about that. Last time, though, he essentially said that, or ECB's stance was that we don't need to provide any forward guidance at this point because things are not changing. So if anything is different from that, we will see an impact on the euro. So euro looks like there's a lot of stuff going on for the euro all throughout the week. First is the political stuff, then there's ECB, so expect volatility in euro. And even from technical perspective, it's at that important level, hasn't really done much. So we'll take a look at that in just a bit. But for now, I would expect volatility in euro. And then we have Bank of Canada Governor Polas speaking. Again, his speech will be important because a market will be looking to see what Canada is going to do about the tariffs and how this will impact the Canadian economy. So that's the answer that everybody would be looking for, and he may get questions on that. And then yet another central bank here, Bank of Japan. Last week, late in the week, we heard that Kuroda essentially said that it's time for them to change monetary policy. And Japan has been the one country with the loosest monetary policy. They were the ones who first started off with these the whole, low interest rates, zero interest rate, and just going, they're actually negative interest rates. And it's a good carry trade because you can borrow in yen and basically invest in anything else to make more money. And that's why the carry trade seems to work so well with Bank of Japan, because for years now, they have had this very, very loose monetary policy. We saw a rise in the yen and drop in everything else against the yen because Kuroda said that it would maybe time to change the monetary policy stance. So that will be the most important thing that market will be looking for, especially following up on his comments from last week. So this could create a lot of volatility for Japanese yen there. So keep that in mind. And then we have Friday, we have manufacturing production numbers for British pound, and then employment numbers for Canada. And of course, the most important event for our monthly event for US here, it will be the non-farm employment numbers here. Those will be important. And in terms of ECB, they have cut back on their asset purchase programs, but they haven't completely removed that. And that's what the market is looking for, to see if they're going to remove it. Last time in their statement, they had said that it's not time for them to completely get rid of that program because it is still injecting a lot of money into the market. So that's what basically market will be looking for, to see if they're going to cut back any further, or are they going to hold it the way things have been for now. All right, so moving on to the charts here. First, we'll start off with Euro US dollar weekly chart. So as we see here, Euro has been in this range sitting here for quite some time. So this resistance is coming from this previous level where price was dropping, consolidated, and then dropped further. Now we have the opposite side where price was rising, pulled back, rose again, and now it's consolidating in this range. So we could get something similar where we need to figure out which way this is going to break. So here the push was getting lower and lower, and we broke to the downside. Now question is, are we going to push into the highs and go upwards and break to the upside? But for now, that has not happened. And as such, we are in a trading range. So if you look over here, it took several weeks before the price broke down. And right now, looks like we are in that holding pattern where we're looking for some sort of an outside stimulus to come and make a change or push things around. In terms of the week here, last time we were looking for a drop into the low here. Now it dropped and pushed back all the way up. From the weekly perspective, we have a weekly pin bar now. So this usually is a bullish pattern, and we're looking for price to go up higher. So in this case, I'm looking for price to move higher. The first target, overall though, this is a range-bound market, and I'm treating it as a range-bound market, and we'll keep on doing so till we see a break either above the high or below the low here, and that has to be like a good close in either direction, and we haven't seen that. We have seen pins to the high, pins to the low now. So there's really, all we're looking for is trading this back into the range here. So this is a bullish pattern. I'm looking for price to go up, and the first target would be 1.2460 level, and then further up, I'm looking for 1.2550. So I'm just going to trade this towards the top of the range. Now, we could get one of these things where price goes up, but because of the lack of momentum, we could see price come back again. But overall, I'm just looking for price. I'm looking for chop in euro US dollar. There's no clear direction. So I'm just going to trade this as a range bound move. And right now I'm looking for price to push up higher into 24.30, then 24.80, and then finally 25.50 level. And then we'll have to see on a daily basis how this plays out. But for now, I'm looking for a bullish move back towards the top of the range. And this is a range bound market at the moment. British pound here, this one has been going lower. So last week I was looking for a drop and we got that drop here. This week I'm looking for price to drop further. Now, because we have had a big move to the downside, I will look for pullbacks as selling opportunities to sell from. A good pullback level will be 139.50-ish level. But if we don't get that, then below that we have the tip of this pin, which is 138.65. So basically, I'm looking for a further down move in pound and just looking for opportunities of selling opportunities. So the move that I would be looking for here would be something like this, and then a drop. First target would be the bottom again, 137.20 level, and then I'm looking for a break and a further drop into this previous support and resistance area at 135.50. So my bias is to the downside, looking for 135.50 for British pound here. Aussie dollar here, Aussie has dropped as well. And with this one, we have a nice, good, solid candle close to the downside, looking for a further move lower in this one as well. But again, because we have seen some nice drops here, we could get pullbacks and then drop. So I'm looking for 0.7835 as a potential level to sell from right into here. So this is a good support and resistance level coming all the way from 2016, January 2016, and then looking for another drop to the downside. So my target here is 75.60 level here, back into the into this previous support and resistance level. So we had a nice double top, and now we're just seeing that trending move to the downside. But again, I would be looking for a bit of pullbacks and then looking for further drops. So bias for Aussie dollar is to the downside. New Zealand dollar here, this one is also pointing downward. So we have come into support. So again, with this one as well, I would be looking for pullbacks. We could go all the way to 73.50 and then a drop, but the bias still remains to the downside, and target is 7060. So looking for a further move to the downside for New Zealand US dollar. So bias is to the downside. Dollar CAD here. Dollar CAD, I think we are in for interesting times, especially with the tariffs here. With Bank of Canada raising rates, dollar CAD had been dropping because anytime the central bank raises rate, it's good for the currency. It usually pushes the currency up. But now with all these developments going on, oil has dropped. As a result, dollar CAD has been pushing up. And then we also now with the tariffs, that could have a negative impact on this as well. So right now, the weekly candle close is very bullish, but we are right into this important support and resistance area. So we do need to see a break above this level, 128.94, so about 12500 level. So we need to see a break above 129.20 level, and then look for a further move to the upside. The bias is bullish for this, but again, we could see a drop, a pullback into this previous pin here at 127.50 right into here before we see a further move to the upside. So I'm looking for pullbacks essentially, and this week I'm just looking for trend continuations. But looking for pullbacks before we continue on with the trend. So bias for dollar CAD is to the upside. Euro Swiss franc here. Euro Swiss franc hasn't really done much. It came and hit the support level at 1.1480 level, and now we are seeing that price close bullish. So for the last 4 weeks, Euro Swiss franc has not been able to break to the downside, which means that it could pull up higher. So the bias would be to the upside and looking at 1.1640 level, which is the top of these pins, for price to move up higher. So looking for a bullish move in Euro Swiss franc. Pound Swiss franc here, we have a bearish move. So I'm looking for a continuation to the downside. And in this case, again, we could get some pullbacks here. So I would be looking for a pullback and to sell into a pullback. My bias is to the downside, 127.30, which is the, or 127.50, which is the bottom of this candle here. That will be the support and resistance level I'm looking for as my target. My bias is to the downside for pound Swiss franc. Dollar Swiss franc here. This one is also looking bearish. So we haven't been able to break above this previous support and resistance area. As you can see, price reacted here many, many times. And now it's reacting in the same place from the opposite direction. So our support has now turned into resistance here. So this is a pin bar. I'm looking for price to drop, and my direction is bearish on this. And my target would be 0.9250 level, which is that pin, and then 91.90. So 9200 will be the second target to the downside. So basically, I'm looking for a further drop in this as well. Yen crosses. Yen crosses paid us really well last week. Now we do have Bank of Japan, and as the yen strengthens, Bank of Japan could be getting worried because they are a big export economy, and when the currency becomes expensive, exports become expensive as well for other countries that are importing or buying those things. So that could be a concern. Bank of Japan is known for doing market interventions. They have tried to stay away from them over the last little while. But again, central banks have a lot of power and they can do basically whatever they choose to. Right now, Bank of Japan has been mild and they've just kind of been watching it. But keep that in mind as yen strengthens and everything drops against it. That would be a concern that would come up. But overall, pound yen here looking quite weak, and I'm looking for a further drop. So just looking for a continuation here as well. But again, looking for a pullback into 148 level, and then looking for further drops. So first target would be 145. And then once we break below that, I'm looking towards the 140 level. But because we have seen a nice drop here, we could get pullback. So just keep that in mind, and I would just be waiting to see how price reacts here. So the pullback could either come into this 148 level or even 147.00 level, the pin right here, because that's a strong support resistance level as well. So we could just get a shallower pullback and then a drop, so like that. So keep that in mind. Euro yen here, we saw pullbacks. I got too many lines here. Let's get rid of some of these. Okay. This one as well, we are bearish. I am looking for a further drop in this as well. All yen crosses have been bearish. So with this one, looking for a further move to the downside, but again, with the volatility in the euro, I would be looking for pullbacks and then a further drop here. My target is 127.80, and we could get a pullback into 13100 or 131.20 level, and then a further drop. So biases to the downside for euro yen. Dollar yen here, this one has been quite bearish as well. So with this one here, I'm looking for a drop as well. So the next target is 104.35 level. And with this one, we could get a pullback either into 106.30 or further up into 10700 level, and then a further drop. But the weekly candle close is quite bearish. So I am looking for a further drop in this. Target here would be 104.30 level. So this is the move I am looking for. Price pulls up and then drops again. Target is 104.35 for this one here. Let's take a look at some commodity crosses here. Aussie yen has been very, very bearish. We are into support here though, which means we could get further pullback here. So with this one, we are into important level, and that could push things up. So we could get pullbacks all the way into 83.20 level, and then a drop from there if yen stays the same. But do remember that we have Bank of Japan, and that could change things drastically based on what they say. So 83.20 would be a good level to look for a sell order here. And my target is 79.65, coming all the way back from there. So biases to the downside for this as well. CAD yen is very bearish. We are down into very, very strong weekly candle close here. Looking for further drop. First target would be 80.50 level, and then we could go even lower here into 78.80 level. Again, with this one here as well, we could see some pullbacks, 8,300 level or 82.60 level. Those could be some good pullback levels. Again, I'm looking for a bit of a pullback and then a drop here, but the candle close is very, very bearish. So we could see price drop further. 80.50 first target, 78.80 will be the second target to the downside for CAD yen. Last one here, New Zealand yen, looking very bearish. But just like CAD yen, we are at that important level, which price has not broken in a while. So in this case, again, we just have to watch out for pullbacks, and we could get pullbacks into this 72.20 level and then a further drop. But it's important to see if the price will break out below this level before going all out short here. The target is 74.80 to the downside. So I would look for a price to push up a little bit, something like that, and then do a drop. So 77.20 level looks like a good level for a potential drop. Gold, let's take a look at gold here. Gold looking weak here. Prices drop, but this is also range bound, just like the euro. But overall, the bias looks like it is to the downside. And next target would be 1296.50 level here. But because we have this pin, we could see price go back, do one of these. It could pull back all the way into 1340 level and then drop from there. So we could get one of these. So overall, my bias is to the downside, but I would look for pullbacks before I look for further selling here. Any other questions? All right, so if you have any questions, you can post them in the chat. All right, so anybody who's following the Turning Pro Challenge, if you are interested in looking at that, so just a quick comment here. So we are at 69.63. We started at 3,500 here, and let's take a look at our sheet here. So we started at 4,500 a few weeks ago, and now we are at 69.63 for that. If you haven't joined the Turning Pro Challenge, you can check it out at tradingwithvenus.com/turnpro. And Pound Aussie, I think if I am understanding that correctly, let's take a look at Pound Aussie here. Sorry, did you say Pound Aussie or Pound New Zealand? Okay, let's take a look at both of them, Pound Aussie and Pound New Zealand. Let me just pull up a new chart, unless I have a chart. Okay, here's the Pound Aussie. Pound Aussie is holding in the middle. It is range bound at the moment. Hasn't really done much. We went to into a double top here. It's just going sideways. At this point, it is range bound and it's smack in the middle of the range. The weekly candle closes very, very neutral. So neutral to slightly bearish. And this one, no clear direction. So this will be, it'd be easier to trade this on a daily basis, on a daily basically based on the daily levels then right now. So it's just sideways, very, very neutral at the moment, neutral to slightly bearish. Pound New Zealand. Okay, so this one's completely marked up. Let me see. Okay, I think I need to pull up a new chart. Let's see, Pound New Zealand. Here we go. Pound New Zealand here, this looks bearish here. It hasn't really done much either, very, very small candle closes, but it looks more bearish than Pound Aussie does. So we do have lower highs here, and we could see a further drop. So the first target would be 1.8880 level to the downside, basically just looking for price to come and retest that level here, the bottom. And then further, if it breaks that level, it hasn't broken that in number of weeks here. So once it breaks 1.8880, then 1.8620 level. But for now, it is going sideways, but it still looks more bearish than Pound Aussie. So my bias would be to the downside. In terms of the broker, the question is about broker. I am not really the very good person to talk about brokers. I just tend to stick with the major ones. I would say do your research. The ones that I have tried have been the usual Oanda, FXDD, Think Markets, that kind of stuff. But I'm not a big, I don't know any of the brokers personally. I don't have any relationship with them one way or the other. So I would say just do your due diligence. But those are the ones that I have tried. Forex.com, I've heard some good things about. But again, this is based on what other people say. So I've tried FXCM, but they had a court case and they are sort of out of the US now. But that's why I don't always comment on brokers. I'm not really the best person. I just pick a broker and I stick to the broker. And that's all. And I just try to manage my trades properly so that the broker doesn't have that much of an impact on my trading. All right, so that's all I have. If you guys are interested in joining me for my daily trade room, so here's a little overview of that. I have a private Skype group where I share trading ideas and analysis with. This is a paid membership. So in this group, we do daily market analysis calls, which is something similar to what we're doing here. However, we look at it on a daily basis. So I pick levels to take trades from on a daily basis, and we have our projections and targets. In the trade room, though, I do share my trades. So when I take a trade, I post that in the Skype chat room, and I share my take profit, stop loss, and entry levels for all my trades as well. And then every Friday we do a webinar, which is an educational webinar. So it's not, it is a more of a comprehensive service where we go over all the different components. We do analysis, we have some trade ideas or alerts, and then also educational component to it. And also you get my pivot point indicator that I do like to use. If you want to join the month-to-month, it's $97 a month, and you can go to tradingwithvenus.com/trading-signals for that. If you're interested in maybe a lower price point on the membership, then you could sign up for a yearly or a semi-yearly membership options where the price will be lower. But these ones you can't cancel, whereas the monthly, there's no obligation. However, with the other ones, you're buying something for a year or semi-yearly. So keep that in mind. So the trade room, I trade the London session. There are 2 times I generally take trades. One is in the Asian session. Asian session, the yen trades have been doing quite well. So I've been calling them in the Asian session because yen tends to move in the Asian session. So I would generally call that after the New York close, so in the evening. And then London session, I trade Tuesday to Thursday, 3 days a week, and I start at 3 a.m. Eastern. And the room will be open till we have the trade on. So basically, the Skype chat room is open all throughout. So members are free to discuss ideas and so forth. But I am in the trade room from Tuesday to Thursday, starting at 3 a.m. Eastern. And it depends on how long I have a trade open for. I usually try to stay in the trade room for as long as the trade is open so I can manage the trade. All right, so that's it for today. You guys have a wonderful rest of the weekend and a wonderful trading week. I will see you again next time. Bye for now.